For decades, owning a home meant stability, family, and a path to financial security. But today, that dream is slipping out of the hands of ordinary people. Not because they stopped working hard, but because someone else is buying everything faster. Quietly, strategically, and with billions of dollars behind them. Large investors, hedge funds, private equity giants, global real estate firms have discovered a new gold mine. Not stocks, not bonds, but homes. Millions of them. Entire suburbs snapped up in single transactions. Whole neighborhoods purchased before families ever get a chance to bid. Properties bought at prices no normal buyer could compete with. Homes transformed into profit machines for corporate landlords. And tenants turned into permanent revenue streams. This shift didn't happen overnight. It's been building for more than a decade. And now, it's reshaping the world in ways most people still don't understand. This is the story of how the middle class lost the housing market and how investors took over. After the 2008 financial crisis, millions of homes went into foreclosure. Families lost everything. But Wall Street saw opportunity. Investors realized housing could become a scalable business, predictable, stable, and endlessly profitable. They bought distressed homes in bulk, sometimes paying for thousands in a single deal. What used to be a local market became a global investment product. The same firms that once traded stocks now trade neighborhoods. Return checks replaced dividends. Eviction threats replaced margin calls. For the first time in history, American homes were placed inside portfolios, funds, and securitized assets. Real estate became inventory. Communities became spreadsheets. And families became financial instruments. As investors flooded in, supply tightened. Competition surged. PEG skyrocketed. Reprise wasn't an accident. It was the start of a new housing era built on corporate control. Yeah, and it was only the beginning. Today, some of the largest real estate companies own tens of thousands of homes. Many operate like national rental chains, controlling everything from pricing algorithms to renovation schedules. With massive capital, they can outbid any family without blinking. With data-driven pricing, they can raise rents faster than wages ever rise. With legal teams, they can evict tenants at scale. This isn't landlording. It's industrialized housing management, a machine built to extract profit from living space. They monitor markets using artificial intelligence. They adjust rents using algorithms that maximize return, not affordability. They buy properties unseen, within minutes, before a human buyer can even schedule a visit. Redhead that once relied on local homeowners now face impersonal corporate entities. And as corporate power grows, so does the imbalance between those who own homes and those who desperately want to. This is how real estate became one of the most powerful industries on Earth. Housing prices didn't just rise, they were engineered to rise. When big investors control thousands of homes in the same zip code, they control the price floor. They can decide what market value means. They can raise rent in one neighborhood and instantly justify raising it everywhere else. When they buy homes in bulk, they artificially inflate demand. Redirect homes empty, they artificially reduce supply. Both strategies push prices higher. Families saving for a down payment suddenly face doubled home prices. Fallback renters face unprecedented hikes, sometimes every year. It's just the market. But this market isn't natural, it's manufactured. Designed by financial giants who treat homes like oil, gold, or any other commodity. The average person is no longer participating in a free market. They're stuck inside a system built to squeeze them. A system where affordability is a myth and ownership is a privilege only the wealthy or well-connected can reach. As home prices rise, renting becomes the only option for millions. And that's exactly what investors want. Renting creates perpetual cash flow. Every month becomes a guaranteed profit. Every family becomes a revenue source that never expires. Unlike homeowners, renters can't build equity. Threatened property for financial security. They can't pass down wealth to their children. They work, pay, and start over each month from zero. In this new economy, renting is no longer temporary. It's permanent for many. And the more people who rent, the richer the investors become. The middle class shrinks, down payments drift further out of reach, and homeownership, once a cornerstone of prosperity, becomes an impossible dream for millions. This is the rent trap, a cycle designed not to help families, but to enrich corporations. This takeover isn't limited to one country. International investors now buy homes across Europe, Canada, Australia, the Middle East, and Asia. Foreign capital pours into local housing markets, displacing families who've lived there for generations. Cities transform into investment hubs rather than places to live. Entire blocks sit vacant, bought not for housing, but for wealth storage. In some countries, local residents are outbid by overseas corporations they'll never meet. The world's housing supply is being absorbed into global portfolios. Real estate is no longer local. It's a global asset class. Ownership is concentrating into the hands of a few, and the consequences are deep. Shrinking birth rates, delayed families, rising homelessness, and collapsing affordability. Cleanliness. What happens when the basic right to shelter becomes a luxury product? What happens when corporations own more homes than people? We are beginning to find out. The housing market is at a crossroads. If the current trend continues, the next generation may never own homes. Scissors will be controlled by investors rather than residents. Communities will weaken as long-term stability fades. Cancel gaps will widen beyond repair. But this future is not guaranteed. It depends on policy, public pressure, and global awareness. Governments are beginning to notice the imbalance. Some are imposing limitations on corporate ownership. Others are implementing taxes on vacant properties. A few are considering bans on bulk purchasing of homes. The world is waking up, but slowly. Karlov reversing a decade-long corporate takeover will require more than regulation. Abandonment redefining what housing is supposed to be. A financial asset, or a human necessity? And the answer to that question will shape the next century. For most of the 20th century, homeownership was the engine that built the middle class, forged savings, stability, and upward mobility for millions of families. But today, that engine is breaking apart. Wages have stagnated while housing costs have exploded. Workers are earning the same, but paying more for everything. Incomes are flat, rents rise every year. Down payments now take a decade or more to save. Many young adults feel trapped in financial quicksand. Homeownership, once affordable on a single salary, now demands too high incomes. The middle class is not shrinking by accident. It is collapsing under pressure from financial systems that no longer serve people. Housing, once a ladder, has become a cage. A debt trap, a rent trap, a wealth barrier. And as investors grow richer, millions grow poorer. Not by choice, but by design. Uncomp isn't just economic, it's generational. It will shape the future for decades to come. Behind the housing takeover lies a powerful, invisible network, a pipeline of money that flows across borders every second. Pension funds seeking profit, sovereign wealth funds hunting for safety, insurance companies searching for long-term returns, billionaires diversifying their empires, private equity firms deploying billions in dry powder, all of them pouring capital into housing markets worldwide. This global money pipeline never sleeps. It moves faster than families can save, earn, or compete. Homes don't stand a chance against trillion-dollar institutions, and local economies bend under the weight of foreign capital. What looks like a housing shortage is often a financial oversupply. Too much money chasing too few homes. The world's richest entities are buying shelter not for living, but for leverage. Not for families, but for financial security. And every time they buy, ordinary people lose another piece of their future. There was a time when a house was a home, a place to grow, to build memories, to feel safe. Today, it's a commodity, traded like oil, gold, or stocks. Corporate real estate funds don't see bedrooms or backyards. They see profit margins. They see rental yield. They see appreciation curves. They see financial instruments. The humanity inside these homes fades behind spreadsheets and quarterly returns. The emotional value of shelter becomes irrelevant. Communities lose identity as corporate ownership spreads. Entire cities become investment products controlled by people who never visit them. When everything becomes a commodity, nothing retains meaning, not even the roof over your head. Patience is not merely economic, it is cultural. It changes how societies function, how families plan their futures, and how nations define prosperity. Governments around the world now find themselves in a growing conflict. On one side, corporations armed with capital, algorithms, and global networks. On the other, millions of citizens struggling to afford the basics. Some countries attempt to push back. New taxes on foreign buyers, restrictions on corporate ownership, laws to prevent bulk home purchases, rent control initiatives to slow rising costs. But the fight is uneven. Financial giants have resources, lawyers, and influence. They adapt faster than lawmakers can regulate, and every delay gives them more power. This is not a fair battle, it's a race between public protection and private profit, between people trying to live and corporations trying to grow. The outcome will define the balance of power for generations. If the current trajectory continues, the world will enter a new era. Neighborhoods dominated by corporate landlords, homes treated as investment assets, renters forming the majority, ownership concentrated among a global financial elite, crimson shaped by algorithms that decide who can afford to live where. A world where your ability to live comfortably depends less on your effort and more on the decisions of investors in boardrooms thousands of miles away. Shelter, once a human right, becomes an earned privilege, something you qualify for, compete for, and constantly fight to keep. This new housing order will reshape politics, society, and economies. It will determine where people work, how families grow, and whether the middle class survives. And once established, reversing it will be nearly impossible. Because the most powerful force in the world isn't technology or government. It's ownership. When homes become financial assets, the consequences ripple everywhere. Birth rates fall because families can't afford space. Small businesses struggle because workers can't live near their jobs. Commutes grow longer as people move farther away from expensive cities. Homelessness increases even in wealthy regions. Mental health issues rise as financial stress consumes daily life. Savings evaporate into rent payments. Generational wealth disappears before it begins. Entire communities become transient, unstable, and temporary. Neighborhoods lose culture as families move constantly, and governments face growing unrest from citizens who feel trapped by the system. This crisis is not just about housing, it's about human dignity, pledged, security, opportunity, Palestinians to build a future, and the silent understanding that a society cannot thrive if its people cannot live securely within it. We are living through one of the largest wealth transfers in history. Homes are shifting from individual families to institutional empires, from local communities to global investors, from people who live in them to people who profit from them. But the story is not finished. Every crisis forces a choice. Every turning point opens a possibility. Pledge the final question becomes, what should housing be? A human necessity protected by society? Or a limitless commodity controlled by global capital? The world must decide, because the consequences of doing nothing are already here. Windshield future of homeownership, community, and economic stability hangs in the balance.